Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The ice maiden. We call her the ice maiden.
Susie is Susie Wiles, Trump's enigmatic top aide, who's now set to be his White House chief of staff, the first woman ever in that role.
Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background.
Wiles has never done a television interview about her role in the president-elect's campaign. In a statement, President-elect Trump called Wiles smart, innovative, and universally admired and respected. Back in the spring, I spoke to Trump campaign senior advisor Chris LaCivita about Wiles.
Susie definitely is probably not only the most interesting, but the most powerful woman in Republican politics right now.
Wiles, a 40-year veteran of Republican politics, cut her teeth working for Congressman Jack Kemp. Her first role with Donald Trump was as the co-chair of his 2016 Florida campaign, a state where she had become well-known in political circles for engineering Rick Scott's razor-thin 2010 victory in the governor's race.
She's a good listener. She's humble. She doesn't say, hey, I know all the answers.
How important do you think those qualities are in working with Donald Trump?
I think they're pretty important.
Wiles next took over the struggling 2018 gubernatorial campaign of Ron DeSantis, for whom Florida firebrand Matt Gaetz was a senior advisor. What do people get wrong about her?
Well, Susie Wiles is ruthlessly effective. She has the exterior of a kind grandmother, but she knows everything going on in all the campaigns she's involved in.
But the infamously insular DeSantis forced Wiles out of his orbit in 2019. And by 2020, she was helping Mr. Trump win Florida a second time.
I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States.
As the de facto campaign manager of Trump 2024, Wiles has created a largely leak and drama-free campaign operation.
We had the best team, and of course, even my boss, Susie Wiles, the best.
But one thing that Susie doesn't do, she doesn't manage the candidate. She's going to allow Trump to be Trump, and she's not there to control him or stifle him. She's there to make sure that the energy created by President Trump is reflected in an operationally competent campaign.
In March, when NBC News asked about criticism that a longtime establishment figure who once worked in the Reagan White House and later ran John Huntsman's presidential campaign was leading Donald Trump's, quote, friends of mine from the old days scratch their heads, but I don't care, Wiles told NBC News. I am quite sure that we are on a mission, and we're going to complete it. That mission now transitions from winning the White House to actually running it.
And the great Garrett Haake joins me now, fresh off the campaign trail. Garrett, congratulations on an incredible job covering the campaign. You really were extraordinary. Let's talk about Susie Wiles. I've been talking to a lot of sources. They are cheering this move. What does she bring to this next Trump administration?
She brings discipline within the organization, and she brings focus for Trump without overly trying to control him, which I think has been a balancing act that so many other campaign chiefs and chief of staffs have tried to achieve and have failed. She has, I think, proven herself to Trump by being successful in a way that he's willing to listen to her, which has just never really been with other aides. And she inspires tremendous loyalty among the staff. I was talking to a Trump campaign staffer today who told me he didn't have any particular desire to go to the White House, but if Susie called, he would walk through fire for her.
Wow.
And that's the kind of leadership you want to see, I think, in that job.
Yeah, it says so much. And the fact that she's so widely liked within Trump world, it really notable. And the fact that he came out and made this appointment just days after winning this decisive victory. Now he turns to some of his other cabinet positions. What are you hearing about that?
Well, I think the Susie pick also was about setting a tone.
Yeah.
And Trump understands that personnel was basically a failure, at least in the first part of his first administration. He had too many picks that didn't work out, too many people who were out for themselves. I think, broadly speaking, I think one of the things that is driving this transition is the desire to pick outsiders, pick business people, not necessarily pick sitting members of Congress. If you look back at the first term, people like Stephen Mnuchin, Ben Carson, he thought were much more effective than Jeff Sessions, who he's still never forgiven, Tom Price, Ryan Zinke, some of these people who got bogged down in scandal. I think that's influencing who he's looking at the top level. I'm about to put out some new reporting that Scott Bessent, the investor, big Trump donor, is appearing to be the front runner for Treasury Secretary, would fit that bill, somebody from outside Washington, but somebody who Trump sees as a peer, a fellow billionaire, smart business guy. That seems to be the way in which he's trying to fill out these cabinet picks, at least as we get started.
Well, you take me to my next question. Speaking of fellow billionaires, let's talk about Elon Musk. Yeah. There's this new reporting out by Axios that, as President Trump told me, he did speak on the phone with President Zelensky. Turns out, according to Axios, that he put Elon Musk on the phone call as well. What do you make of that?
Well, I can't confirm it, but it would not surprise me in the least. It is very much in keeping with how Trump conducts himself, his foreign policy. He's willing to bounce ideas off people. You've called him on the phone. I've called him on the phone. Yeah. He's perfectly willing to hand the phone around the room when he wants to talk to different people. And Musk, of course, was there at Mar-a-Lago and has been close to Trump off and on throughout this campaign process. Remember, Musk has been involved in Ukraine's defense to a certain extent because of his Starlink satellite communication system. So it would not surprise me, even though I can't confirm it.
Garrett, just finally, big picture. When I spoke to President-elect Trump yesterday, he sounded incredibly emboldened in the wake of this decisive victory. Wanted to talk about the fact that he'd expanded his margins with Latino voters, with other various groups, that he'd even had some wins in some blue counties and blue areas. What is your sense when you talk to folks inside Trump world?
I think they all feel the same way. They had a strategy from the jump. It was something that had never been tried before, this idea of turning out these low propensity, unlikely voters, young men. And they were, in many cases, ridiculed for it as like, this is never going to work. And it has. So I think there's a vindication in Trump world that they were right all along. And they're going to remember who to borrow a phrase from the president, the haters and doubters were along the way. I also think they're now kind of grappling with this reality that they have, in fact, won and that they are going to get a chance to try out this mandate that he thinks he has.
All right. Garrett Haake, great to see you. Get some rest.
Thank you. I'll try.
But I'll see you on Sunday. I'll meet the press.
Not too much rest. Saturday for rest,
yes.
Sunday for Meet the Press.
Yes, I will see you on Sunday. Thank you for joining me. All right.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.